Okay, well, welcome. My name's Kaisa Gervine, and I am so excited that all of you are here to learn about stress. I feel like this is a really, really important topic. So, the first thing I'm going to do is introduce myself. I am a nutritional counselor um, by passion. Like, that's what I really, really enjoy doing. Um, right now, I'm not currently working in that field full time. So I've been going back to school and doing studying for digestive work because in nutrition, I'm learning that a lot of people, well, the number one thing that people are suffering from is digestive issues. And rather than going to a doctor and getting a pill or something to just like kind of take care of what's happening right in that moment, it's really neat to learn how to take care of your body in a way that it can sustain you and that you can like really flourish rather than just kind of suffer and then go to the next thing and the next thing. Anyways, so that's something that I'm doing right now. But I also am a certified life, health, spiritual, and soul purpose coach. And I did that, and it's really helped me in my nutritional counseling because that's what we're kind of doing is we're talking and we're really getting to know each other so that I can support them in how they want to heal, and it's through food. So my company or my website, for lack of a better term, is called Healthy Self with Food, just because that's like what I really always believed in, felt is really important for all of us. So my information is on the forms you have, and we can talk more about that at the end. But for this will date me, but for 30 years, I have been cooking food for my family, and I have a good sized family, and they have been patient over the years as I've learned how to cook properly for them when it comes to health issues and allergies and food sensitivities and things like that. So that's kind of where I started, and I still do that, but I'm trying to incorporate it into ways to help other people as well. So that's kind of my background. And stress is something that comes up a lot. Well, not a lot, always, 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 for anyone that is dealing with any health issues. They don't always know it, and the doctors might not say that is for sure the cause. But when I sit down and talk to them and we talk about food or nutrition, because that's always an important part of their healing process, they are, it comes up. It's a natural part of the conversation that comes up that, oh, well, yeah, I'm dealing with X, Y, and Z. So we're going to go over what a lot of those things are because I think sometimes we don't always realize what things do cause us stress or maybe even what stress is. I feel like for me growing up was like if you said like, oh, I'm totally stressed out, like it has to kind of look like that rather than other kinds of stress. Like you feel it ever like in your stomach, just butterflies. I get nervous. I get nervous before I do presentations where I have a I can't eat. But if I go play a sport, I can go eat. I'm not nervous about it. Nervous is a form of hormone, but also a form of a stress release or a stress hormone. Um, Stress is kind of like a very vague word that, right, we can put a lot of things in there. So let's learn what actual stress is. So I am going to kind of follow along with your handout, but the first thing I put on there was that the definition of stress. So I like to be in school. That's why I keep doing it because I like learning things, and then I really like sharing it with other people too. But I think it's good to have a definition so that you don't think I'm just making it up. You know for sure this came from the dictionary. But it's a state of worry or mental tension. So when I hear the word mental tension, I'm like, oh yeah, I know what that feels like, right? Mental tension. It can be up here in our head, it can be down here in our stomach, um, caused by a difficult situation. Well, I bet we all can consider different things difficult, right? So it's not the same for everyone, but there's going to be some form of some sort of difficult situation that we'll all come across in our life. And stress is a natural human response that prompts us to address challenges. And then I put in parentheses like, are we addressing these challenges? And I'm going to answer that for you that often we're not, which is why we have stress, which is why there's things that we need to address. And it's nobody's fault. We didn't learn it in school. We didn't often learn it at home. Maybe our parents didn't know about it, so they couldn't teach us. And so it's kind of just keeps perpetuating, right? And so you kind of hear sometimes, maybe doctors or maybe someone saying, oh, you just need to lower your stress. You just need to calm down. Okay, how do I do that? Right? So that's kind of what we're here to talk about. There's 3 different kinds of stress. I didn't understand this till I started learning, more about stress, but acute. And so like, if you've heard acute before, that means something that happens like right now, right away, right in the moment. So we all can have some acute stress. It could, and I've given some examples on here, but we can have things that, someone cuts us off in traffic, or I always blank on all the examples. That's why it's probably better that I write them down. But I'm sure you all can think of something that happens that just causes you stress in the moment. And all remember stress means is that you have some sort of response to something that happened. And you feel something. So it can be almost any emotion. I would say probably not like joy. I would think like joy and happiness because it feels different, right? So you have to think about the kind of emotions that feel like something you say, oh yeah, I remember feeling stress and it felt like, and then you can kind of describe it. Sour, hot, but something maybe not real happy, right? So it's going to be more of an uncomfortable feeling, or what I would call a negative emotion. Whatever you're feeling, it's causing that inside of you. Like you feel it inside of you, but like it's literally causing hot. So like we think of anger as a hot emotion. So hot, sour of something you're just like, oh, like bitter or sour an experience, or it's the same thing with the taste. That's what happens inside your stomach, which sometimes is why we get like acid in our stomach, right? Or we, the butterflies cause it. So like I can't eat because I will go to the bathroom. And we won't get into a lot of that. I do like that area as well, but that's not what we're here today to talk about. But that it literally can cause the physical response for you to need to run and go to the bathroom. And there's a whole scientific, or like our bodies are set up in the way that they're responding properly to that hormone or to that emotion. Okay, so back to our definition. We have acute, and then we have episodes of acute stress, and then chronic stress. And so you probably heard of chronic stress, which means it's happening over and over and over and over again. It doesn't go away. You don't get a break. So it's always there. It's something that's always bothering you and always a part of your life. And the body doesn't know the difference between someone cutting you off in traffic and you going, oh, okay. They needed to get in more than I needed. Okay, I'm just gonna let that go. Versus maybe someone passing away in your family, or dealing with something that's more long-term. If you hold on to that person cutting you off in traffic. Okay, so we'll get more into that, but your body doesn't know the difference. It knows stress is stress. The hormone was released. I am feeling the results of having stress. Okay, so we talked about acute stress is the short-term stress, and then there's some examples. Oh, and traffic jam was the first one. Traffic jam, maybe if you get nervous in crowds, loud noises, if that bothers you, running late, that's mine. Hate it when I'm running late. It totally stresses me out every time. And an argument with a loved one, deadlines. Do you ever have impending deadlines, maybe at work or if you're in school? Projects, or losing something really important like a wallet or a phone or something like that. We get stressed about those things. Or maybe a child, losing a child. I've done that before too. And it stresses you out in the moment. And then, you get over it because you find the item or the person. But sometimes and often we hold on to that experience, that moment of, because it's like it goes down into your gut, right? Down into your belly, and you really feel that. And if you keep living through that, or holding on to that, or not understanding that it's still there with you, and you haven't released it or let it go, so like it hasn't left you, whatever that means. And each person, that's a little bit different how you do that, then it's still there. That emotion, that energy, that vibration is still in you, and that's how it causes damage over time, the stress. Okay, so there's some ways on here of how to recover from acute stress. So I call it traumatic stress because for me, those things, especially like the losing a child temporarily, like at the zoo, is very stressful, right? It's very traumatic. You can lean on loved ones. So if you have more loved ones that you can talk to or have them help you through it, you can face your feelings, which it's very normal for us to want to avoid this one. And this is why I can have work. That's why I can do what I do. And that sounds terrible, but it makes me happy to know that I can help people that way, even if it's just by educating them or having them realize that literally facing your feelings. There's many ways to do that. So that's just like one way of saying it. Prioritizing our self-care. So often, especially as moms and women, we tend to neglect ourselves, right? We tend to take care of everybody else and not necessarily ourselves. And we're not sure what that looks like or how we can do that without it feeling like maybe we're being selfish or there's not enough time or I just can't. And so those are really important things. Eating nutritious meals, of course, that's number one because that's what I love. But it's because I know what it does for you. Like I know the changes in your body it can make and how you can heal from anything that you're suffering from just by taking better care of yourself. And getting regular physical activity doesn't mean you have to have a strenuous exercise program or anything like that. Just literally moving, whatever that means. It could be chasing after kids. It could be, taking the stairs. It could be parking, farther out in the parking lot and walking. But there's things you can even do at home. Just getting up from sitting down or that kind of thing. Again, we could go more into that, but I think you understand what that means. And then getting a good night's sleep. And a lot of these sound really easy, but most of the time we don't do it. And so, what does getting a good night's sleep look like? When's the last time you got a good night's sleep? For moms, sometimes it's not a long time. My kids are more grown now. I don't have any babies at home anymore. And so I get a good night's sleep. But when I had little ones, I didn't ever get a good night's sleep. But, I think when we're young, our bodies are kind of set up to kind of deal with that and be okay with it temporarily because we don't have to do it, all the way in our whole life, hopefully. And so once we get to a point where we can get a good night's sleep, we may not remember or know what that looks like or feels like. So that could be another conversation we can have as well. The next thing on here is, does acute stress damage our body? I bet you can guess what the answer is, that it does. There is proof that stress and those hormones can cause damage. Now, I'm not saying that to scare anyone or to make people feel like, well, what am I going to do? There's nothing I can do. But there really is, because our body is used to or knows how to work with fight or flight responses, but then it needs to not have it stay with us. So that's what we're really going to talk about. So it doesn't mean you're never going to have stress. You're going to have stress. You are. It's going to happen. And that's okay. It's more of the holding on to it or living through it, continuing to project with it. But it does cause inflammation in our body, and it tends to go to our heart. And that's why you can feel it in your blood pressure in that moment when you're having, maybe an argument or something's going on. And we don't want that to stay there. So when we have episodes of stress, acute stress, we experience it more often. So it's happening. It could be the same situation happening more than once. So every time we get cut off, we got to yell and scream. And that's okay. You can do that. But don't continue to be mad at that person on the freeway. I'm saying this like pretending like my husband's sitting right here. Like, don't be mad. And I'm like, it's okay. Just let it go. But we all deal with it differently, right? But having that initial reaction to anything that happens to us is human. That's okay. It's continuing to be like angry and tense and stressed about it. And often, if we are that way, or we know someone that is that way, they don't realize that they're doing that, right? So I'm sure you can think of, two different friends or people that you know, and they could be in the same situation, and they'll both yell out, "Oh, why'd that happen?" But one then will be like, "Oh, so how's your day?" And they'll talk to you, and the other one will like keep talking about it and keep talking about it and keep talking about it. You've seen this, right? So that's a good sign or a good indication. But sometimes people don't talk about it or express it. What do? They kind of go inward, right? So they're still feeling that. It's still in there, but now they're mad, right? And you kind of hold on to it. And I know I've done that because that can sometimes be we each have a tendency. That could be my tendency to like, I can't believe you just said that. And so now I'm mad. I don't know if I make that face, but I think sometimes I do make faces. But I'm doing that for like the feeling. Like you can feel it. It's in there. And so yeah, I'm walking around and I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying I'm mad, but I feel it and I know it's there. Again, that's okay to do that because sometimes that's going to be a situation. Maybe this is not the moment to address it. But the sooner that we can, and we'll go through those steps, then the better for our own body, for our insights, right? All right, so this was a good example that acute stress typically refers to the effects of a more demanding situation. So an example would be like an infant having a fever, because that's not going to be just like for 5 minutes, right? That's going to be for a day or maybe sometimes longer. I had one with my youngest that lasted a week. Anyways, but without going into that situation, that's a good example, if you've experienced that before, of acute stress. So the situation happens, but then it drags on a little bit longer. So you're continuing thinking about it and worrying about it. If somebody loses their job, that can be stressful for a while because how are we going to pay the bills? Where are we going to get? How are we going to get a new job? Those kind of things. So you're thinking about it. It's like part of your life. You can't change those situations, so that's okay to deal with those things while they're happening. And sometimes we meet people that kind of feel like they always have something going on, and it can be part of their personality. I don't know how many here are like A types, and there's other labels for that, but like I like to go, 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 do. But I choose to do it that way. And so I've loved that I got to learn a lot of this kind of stuff so that I can still be who I am and still be busy and have projects, but not be stressed about doing it. And so, again, another big conversation we could have maybe another day, and some good books that I will tell you about that kind of address some of those things so that we can really capture like who we are and not give that up, thinking that there's something wrong with us because we are stressed, or that you have to change something about how you are. So it's more of just how we handle things that are coming at us. Okay, so the treatment for this, I think it's funny sometimes some of the information that I can find either in books or online or whatever. And so, you just need to change your job if it's stressful. Just change your job. It's not always that easy, is it? So obviously that's just a suggestion, something you can look at. There's more of a process than just changing your job, but sometimes that's the answer. Or starting a physical exercise routine. That's something I'm pretty sure everyone in their mind wants to do for one reason or another. One could be because they really enjoy the pain or they really like sweating, but mostly we might want to do it because we believe it will change something about how we look or feel, right? So yeah, that could be a solution, but it might not be the solution for everyone. So I'm not here to tell you that that's something that you have to go and do. But the other suggestion is therapy. Now, sometimes when people think about therapy, just from people that I've talked to, that's not always something that people want to do or have maybe had a good experience with, or maybe it's them and someone else, like maybe a spouse, and they're like, no way, right? And so that's not always the answer either, but there's other ways of getting therapeutic conversations, shall we say, with a girlfriend or with someone that you can talk to about things. A massage. There's a person I don't know, and they're massaging me, and you can talk about whatever you want because I'm not going to see them. So sometimes, right, like, so venting, that's important. That's important to be able to talk about that. Now, we don't want to be like bashing people or saying like really terrible things, but sometimes we need to talk about a situation. This is what happened. This is what happened to me, and it's a way of releasing it. Like, right, we're verbally releasing it, but you feel a little bit of the energy or the emotion that was tied with it releasing as well. That's a sign that's helping you. Okay, sorry, I kind of lost my spot there, but I thought that was, there's some good suggestions. Then there's toxic stress. This results in prolonged activation of the stress response. So you can imagine why they call it toxic. So we've, keep releasing that, keep having those butterflies, keep having that feeling, and it becomes toxic, right? Like right where you feel it, that's where it's happening inside your body. But the difference is that this is the type of prolonged stress where you don't have any sort of support system. If you're all by yourself, there's no one for you to talk to, whether it's because you don't want to talk to someone or you're kind of alone in that area as far as discussing whatever it is. So it says on here, with a failure of the body to fully recover. And so it differs from normal stress because you have the lack of a caregiver, support, reassurance, or emotional attachments. So that's really important. And we as human beings need other people. That's why we have families. That's why we have communities. And we need someone to talk to. So that's how important it is. Then there's PTSD, which I'm pretty sure everyone's heard of that. And typically, like, I know I always associate it with like someone that went to war, or something like that, because they were in really traumatic situations. Did you know that we all can have a little form of it based on this definition? So it's acute stress that's happened in any situation. So you can imagine any situation you've been in, and it's the most immediate response that we have to that situation is some sort of reaction. It's going to be different depending on the situation, but it's left untreated. So that's why we typically think of it with somebody that's been in something really traumatic like war, because clearly, like, they were in a situation that was part of what they had to do, but they have to keep going and keep going and keep going until they come home. And then they're like, oh my gosh. And it's still happening for them because it was never addressed. It was never talked about. It was, I'm sure they have support in those kinds of situations. I get most of my information on this from TV, and I'm sure that's not, you know what I mean? Like, you've seen that like in movies or different things where they talk about it. And so if anyone else knows more about it, I apologize for my lack of knowledge in that area. But what I do know is that we each can have a little form of it, because if we have untreated something or not looked at it, it can form into this. And so what that means is that then you have some sort of automatic response system to something similar, right? So I'll give you an example. I got bit by a dog. I'll tell you, every time I saw a dog, I was horrified. And wouldn't you know it, lots of people have dogs. And especially when I came to a new area, and so I didn't quite know like all my neighbors, or someone that I needed to go to their house for the first time, and I see a dog or dogs, and especially if they're barking, I have a traumatic response inside of me. Now, that seems fair, right? It seems logical because I had experienced something. But it's not really logical, because it doesn't mean that dog's going to bite me. But that's how my body responds to it. So the way it would be PTSD would be if I heard a dog bark somewhere else and I was nowhere near the dog, and then I had that traumatic response. Okay, so maybe you can think of a better example of something. I have some ideas, but I don't even want to actually go there because they're traumatic. So that's why I use this dog bite one, because you can kind of like really understand that. So it's okay that I see the dog and I know that there's a chance, but I have learned through using a lot of these tools. And now when I go somewhere and there's a dog, I breathe in a few times before I get out of the car, and I tell myself it's going to be okay. Now, if it's not okay, that's okay too, because I'm not going to die. And that's okay too. Like that's a whole nother conversation. But my point is that I don't want to affect myself knowing the possibility, because there's always a possibility of that, right? So then you can kind of get in your head. So I breathe in. Okay, I can do this. And especially if any of my kids are with me, my young ones, not my big ones, they can take care of themselves. But my little ones, I am going to be brave for them. I am going to be the one that is going to take the dog bite before I'm going to let the dog bite them. So I do it. I get out, and then everything's okay. It's been okay every time. It's just that one time, right? And then I can calm myself down, because like it's natural for you to have some sort of reaction to whatever traumatic event that may happen. Seeing someone that you don't want to see because there was something that happened, going into a store because there was something that happened and you're embarrassed. Like, right? I could think of a lot of examples. It's okay to do it because it's not the same situation. So we have to give it a chance. Well, we don't have to. You can choose to give it a chance. And over time, it's gotten easier and easier, and I don't respond the same way. So that's just an example of practice and learning tools and being able to use them to your advantage. And then chronic stress, I'm pretty sure we all know what that is. It's just like really having it always there. And I believe that we can have a little stress, not release it. It's still there. It builds, and a little bit more, like a new situation. And now we have chronic stress, right? So it's not necessarily a big traumatic event that we've experienced in our lives. It's like the kids don't pick up their shoes. Oh, I have to ask them to do their homework again. They don't go to bed on time. Again, I could give you a lot of examples of things that have stressed me out in my life. And they can build if we let them. So chronic stress is the one that's going to give us the high blood pressure, and some really good examples of things that could be long-term chronic stress could be things like poverty, being in a situation like that, a dysfunctional marriage or a family that you grew up in, and you may still now be living through that in your own lives or marriage. So it's not necessarily just your current life, or a deeply dissatisfying job. And I'm sure we've all had a job before that was, that way. And we had different choices that we could make, like stay there, suffer, leave. And there's always consequences, right? It doesn't mean it's just like, oh, no problem, I'll leave, but now I don't have a job, right? So like, there's always something that we're kind of having to deal with. All right, so now, I'm not quite sure the best way to do this, because I don't want to take like your whole evening, but that's why I made a list of the signs that we're stressed, so that you can look at these things and kind of go, oh, okay, I do have some of those, or one, or I have experienced that before. So I can identify that is when I am stressed, is when I do get a little bit irritable. I know I do, when certain things stress me out. And so by knowing this, it doesn't mean that the thing doesn't want to make me irritable, but now I recognize it. And I know it seems really simple and silly, but I tend to do some breathing. I'm giving my secret away. So if my kids now know that if I am deep breathing, just give me a minute, right? And do you know that scientifically, that deep breathing in deep actually does something psychological, emotionally for you? I'm sure you've probably heard this before, especially if you come here for a class in deep breathing. That's why there's classes on it, or yoga or meditation or any of these kind of things. Getting that oxygen to go down deep into our belly. It is getting oxygen deep into us, and oxygen in our blood is what heals us. So you can heal yourself for free daily or anytime you want by breathing in deep. So if I gave you one, not homework assignment, but suggestion of something to do, is to maybe put a sticky note up or something at home, or something that will help remind you, and think about breathing in deep, at least 3 times a day, at least once 3 times a day, or 3 times once a day, just depending on like kind of how that works for you. But the more you do it, the more oxygen you get inside your blood, and it goes up to your brain. You think more clearly. It naturally relaxes you. There's all sorts of things that it does. And if there was 2 things I could tell you that you could do for free that could heal you on your own, it would be breathing in deep and drinking a room temperature to warm glass of water in the morning. Those 2 things, you could solve a lot of digestive and other issues. Yes. Okay. Why room temperature water? Because without going into a lot of information on our digestive system, which we can do another time, cold water restricts our blood flow because it's cold. And so it kind of restricts it. You can imagine what that would look like. And if you've ever drank really cold water, you can kind of feel it like almost hitting your stomach on an empty stomach and what it feels like. And that is not calming. That is not soothing. Now, you might say, I don't really enjoy warm water. So like you don't have to do it if you don't want to, but I'm just saying there is reasons that warm, and by warm I mean room temperature. I just don't mean cold, is very soothing. And it's so relaxing that if you do it first thing in the morning, it can help you have your morning bowel movement. And again, we won't talk about that today, but that is really important for our health as well. Okay, so if there's not any other questions about that, good question. We have our list or signs of things that we're stressed. And I'm sure this list could be longer. These are just examples. And then there are causes of stress. So this list got quite a bit longer, I know, as I was, trying to gather up, situations and examples. But the causes of stress could, I don't know, I almost wish like we could discuss a little bit more and like have examples so that it felt like more real to you. But I realize that that's not necessarily something we can do in this setting. So hopefully the list is helpful, but I love talking about all of these kinds of things. But for today's purposes, you can refer to the list. And then there are symptoms of being stressed. So we have everything to like something obvious, like having crying spells, and you're like, gosh, I don't even know why I'm crying. But you know that you're, stressed, and it's kind of triggering that, to just being tired, just being fatigued, because it takes a lot of energy, of your body's energy, to feel stressed, to feel these emotions and hormones. And then the effects of stress. So to me, that's like the really important one, which you may or may not have the results of yet. But to me, this list is the one that I would hope and will inspire people to want to do something different in their life, knowing that they can keep themselves from having these particular health issues, with number one being digestive problems, because it affects our whole life. It affects our whole body. And so to me, that's so exciting, that if you know that it could and almost will cause digestive issues, and many of these other things are possible depending on your body, wouldn't we want to do something different? And I'm sure you're all saying, yes, of course I want to do something different. But the question is, how? How do I do something different? Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about next, is some of the ideas that we come up with. You may come up with some of your own, but the list I have for stress relief techniques hopefully will be helpful, because my goal is for you to be able to take this home, be able to apply things that will help you. And then if you're in a situation where you say, this stuff really helped, I want to learn more about it, you have somewhere to come to learn more, or you have classes or other things that you can do in a space like this that could help you relax. But the first one is to get enough sleep. We kind of touched on that in the beginning, but I wanted to spell it out a little bit more, that it could be somewhere right around 8 hours. It's going to be different for every body type, and that's also another health discussion. Part of the work that I do is with Ayurvedic medicine, which is just the study of us as human beings, our body, individually, meaning that we understand that each one of us is not the same. Don't have the same digestive system. I mean, you can tell just by looking at us, we're not the same, right? We're not the same height, we're not the same build, we're not the same hair color. all of that means something about who we are. And we each have a different digestive system. So some of us have hotter, or colder, or in the middle, and that affects us in our emotions. So usually our emotions are similar to our digestive tract. So if we have a hot digestive system, we may have more hot emotions. Anyways, again, we can go into that another day, but getting enough sleep is a little bit different for each person depending on your energy level and type. Okay. So I put 8 hours because that's like this magic number. But maybe for you it's 6 and you're like, I feel great. I feel great at 6. I feel complete. That is when I go to sleep. That is when I wake up. That is totally fine. But a good bedtime, generally for most people, is also right around the 10 o'clock-ish area too. Again, I never get there, but that's always my goal. And so it's nice to have at least something to aim for and to know the reason behind it. Okay, because it gives us the window of time to have the most deep sleep and to be, the most relaxed. And you've heard of that, REM and all. And I'm not going into that. I'm just saying, like, it is just a known fact that if we're following the cycles of our body and we're getting enough sleep, it really makes a difference for us. And so adequate and poor sleep can obviously affect, like, yeah, I laid in bed for 8 hours. I don't feel good when I woke up. So like that's something that we need to look at. And stress can affect that. Okay, the things that we've experienced can affect how we sleep. It can affect your mood. And we know that like not getting enough sleep. I'm grouchy if I don't get enough sleep. And then our energy levels and just our physical health. So number 1, getting enough sleep. Then it's important that we know or learn relaxation tips. And it doesn't have to be the same for every person. So it'll have meditation on this. And you might think, I don't want to do meditation, or I've not done it before. I have a hard time sitting still to do meditation. But I have found ways to modify what meditation looks like for me so that I can make sure that I have some sort of quiet mind time. So, I don't have phones, kids, music, computer, whatever it is, in my ear. That's my quiet time. And so often for me, it can be in the morning because it's really quiet in the morning. But I know that's not always the case for everyone. So I'm just giving you an example. And so I use that time because I don't have to be up and I don't have to take care of anyone, that like I'm already in a relaxed position and I'm already like starting to think about the day, that I can use that time to be my meditation time. But I'm the kind that if I sit still, then I fall asleep. Otherwise, I need to be moving. So I just want you to think about that when it says, learning meditation. It, you can do it traditionally. You can find things on apps to walk you through it. You can look online. You can come to a class somewhere where they teach you how to do it. Or you can just quietly think about, like, well, what do I want to accomplish today? What's coming up for me? So there's always something that, like, we're like, that one thing bugged me yesterday, or gosh, I really like to get this project done. That's coming up for you. What is coming up for you? And that's what you can think about in that moment. And it's hopefully not a stressful thought for it to be meditation. There's muscle relaxation, guided imagery, which can kind of be like meditation, and deep breathing exercises. And so I put on here to take your 3 deep breaths 3 times a day. Just like I said, as a idea or recommendation. And if you journal, it would be fun to see if it made a difference in your life. Like, were you clearer? Did you feel like you had less stress, or you were able to take a moment and look at it? Or did you sleep better? Or did you digest your food better? Like, it could do all of those things. And then, of course, yoga. Yoga is a good relaxation thing to do. It's great because it not only stretches your muscles and gets you that movement that we were talking about, but you don't have to be like running or jumping or doing something really crazy. But you also have that quiet time. Even though someone's like guiding you through a yoga thing, you don't have to think about it. Like, oh, okay, reach here, do this. And so for me, sometimes that's even a quiet moments. And there's great online ones that you can find for free and do at home. Strengthening your social network. So this is kind of what we were talking about with having friends or someone to talk to, but we're all in different situations where friends don't just come to our front door and knock on the door and like, hey, you want to be friends? Like, wouldn't that be so nice? And so there's definitely a process as we become adults to, vet other people or get to know them or, spend that time. Do I have the time? But there's some other ways, like maybe taking a class. One of the most fun things about coming somewhere like this was like meeting other people, and even something like this. Like, I mean, I know we're not like necessarily getting to like really talk to each other and get to know each other, but like I kind of feel like you being here, I feel like it. I feel like, okay, we're connecting on some level. But joining any sort of an organization, think about something that you like to do, anything from art to some sort of craft or knitting, or the list can go on and on. It could be a sport, it could be a book club. And so participating in those kind of things can be really important too. It could be a mom group, or it could maybe even be Facebook. I haven't been a big Facebook person, but I know I have kids that do that and they love like connecting with other people and talking about things. That's good too, as long as you're getting fulfilled that way and you feel like you're connected and you feel like you're kind of satisfied in that area. And then the next one is honing in our time management skills. Well, for everyone, this is not necessarily our forte. Some of us like to keep trying and want to get really good at it. So I don't want this to be like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do that. All it means is that you can do everything you want to do if it works for you. So like you get to choose that, right? There's going to be some people that will be like, I'm not a multitasker, and that's another conversation. I want to have something filling up every minute, or I want to be scheduled. And then there's some people like, yeah, just I'm free, I'm artsy, and like that's good too. So it doesn't have to look a certain way. All time management means is that you feel complete in what you've done in your time. Now, if any of you are a mom like I am, I don't feel like I ever get done what I want to get done. But if we look at what we have done in a day and we're a little nicer to ourselves, and we have gratitude, very positive vibration, gratitude, and kind of like accomplishment, like giving ourselves credit for the things that we have done. So originally for me, that started working out where I actually wrote down, I actually scheduled everything I did so that I could see what I did. And I was like, I actually got a lot done today. Did I accomplish everything? No. But I don't think that we ever will if we have too big of a list, right? But it's nice because on my schedule, I can just move it to the next day. I move it to the next day. So I do a lot of this. It jumps, and it may keep jumping, but I like that it's there so that I can see it. And so I can feel satisfied that I managed my time the best I could that day. So hopefully that is helping to describe this so that you're not getting more stress from thinking you need to be more organized. Okay, that's not what this is saying. It's just saying, like, look at what you spend your time doing. And if you're not satisfied with it, you can change that. It may be a process. It may be a process of walking through, like, how do I change that? What do I take out? What do I add in? How do I balance that? And so that's where some of the conversations that we could have in the future, if you want to, could focus on that. So that's just one example. Resolve stressful situations. Well, this is the one that most people don't like to look at. And so if I could give any advice from my life and through being through many stressful situations, I would say that this is really good advice, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. So if you understand it and you can just kind of make that your goal, that I will address the stressful situation. But sometimes we need a little bit more time. Sometimes some people need to like really think about something and then feel ready to talk about it. But all it's just giving you advice that holding on to it and festering it is going to continue to cause that stress. So what does it look like to resolve that? It could be, and this example is hold a family problem solving session. If the particular situation is within your family unit and that's something that works for you, great. But we could also learn negotiation skills at home, but as well as at work. I think often people feel a lot of stressful things at work, right? Like, so if they have a job that they're going in the office, having to work with other people, you don't have any control over those people that you work with, right? But like you got to go there every day, and it's hard to like learn the skills of like, I need to speak up for myself, whether it's to go to a boss and like, hey, we need to look at this, we need to talk about it. But if we learning communication skills that's not like threatening to other people, but that you're addressing things and you're requesting things is very powerful. And we all deserve to do that. Like someone else deserves to request something from me, like, can you just please stop talking? Oh yeah, no problem. Or I could have a request. Can you just listen to me a little bit longer? We can ask those things. It doesn't mean that we get to control the outcome, but there's a lot of power, and by power I just mean like confidence in ourselves of being able to request things so that we can resolve stressful situations. It's not easy. We have to practice it. We have to keep learning, and often that's why people will have a therapist or have someone they need to talk to, because they need to work through resolving stressful situations. So that's just a goal. We can do a lot of these other things, and maybe one on there isn't happening, and that's the one that we can just kind of keep looking at and trying to fix. But we can nurture ourselves. That's one I'm sure we can all do, unless we have blocks or unless we have things that tell us like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve it, it's going to cost too much money, right? Like there's a whole bunch of things we can tell ourselves on why we don't deserve to nurture ourselves. Again, this can look very different for every person. You could treat yourself to a massage, and most people will be like, oh, well, I would love that, but it costs too much money. We're lucky where we live, there is a massage school in town. I don't know how many of you know that, but it's very inexpensive to get a massage. Now it is a student, and that's okay with me, but so that's just one of the caveats, right? They're learning. Every time I've gone, they've been fabulous. But it's a way for them to learn and for you to get the benefit. But I do warn you, you will get addicted. You will want to go all the time. And there's nothing wrong with that, because it is a very wonderful form of releasing tension and stress. Anytime you do something touch, though, there's a transaction going on there as well. But I think it can really help people in a lot of areas. The one thing you can't do is just go once and go, didn't work for me. Massage didn't work. It doesn't work like that. So we have stress that's coming on all the time. So we have to continually be finding ways to release it. So treat yourself to a massage. And I like to play sports. And I think massage is necessary for you to survive in that like kind of mode. But I believe that we all need it for our circulation. So remember that blood and the oxygen? Massage helps that like go around even more and helps release that. If you are someone that likes to take a walk, that could be how you nurture yourself. For me, the last times I took a walk because I was angry, so I took a walk. But maybe that's what you need to do, right? And it's a way to nurture yourself. And I could walk and talk to the horses I'd pass by, and it was great. But I hope that my neighbors don't know that, so they know that when I'm walking, it's because otherwise I really don't want to go on a walk. I mean, I do, but maybe you're the kind of person that maybe wants to take a nap or listen to your favorite music. And I highly recommend music. I don't know about all of you, but I used to think that when I became a mom, I wasn't allowed to listen to music because like I'm not a teenager anymore, and that's not okay. And my husband likes music a lot, and I would be like, turn that down. Why do you guys like? And so when my kids would do chores, they would turn up the music and they would rock out while they're doing chores, and it stressed me out. Why? Because that's just where I was at that time in my life. And now I love it, but I had to like really like get rid of what I was telling myself about. Was I allowed to? I mean, because the music that I remember listening to growing up is different than what like my kids are listening to, but they kind of think it's fun. Like, oh yeah, this is retro. This is really cool. And like I know the words to those songs, but I don't know the words to their songs. But it's such a great release. So I highly recommend doing that. I often listen to music when I'm cooking in the kitchen, and I definitely listen to music when I'm doing my workout. But I shut the blinds because I don't want anyone watching me dance around. But it feels really good. It took me a long time to get there where I was comfortable doing that, though. And so if you're not there, but it sounds interesting, I recommend trying it. And it feels really good. Um, listening to a podcast or laughing. So I know when I wasn't happy and I was more stressed that I wasn't laughing. Now, that's not to say that all of a sudden, when you decide, okay, I'm going to start laughing, that situation's going to be funny. But it's a good indicator of how relaxed you are, that you're willing to like listen to my kid's silly joke and actually laugh at it, or find something funny about, that TV show or something one of our animals did or whatever. Like, it's all about where you're at to be able to laugh at something, right? Um, Depending on the state of mind you're in, you could listen to, like, let's say a comedian, um, and laugh at it. And if you're in one place versus how you're feeling, same comedian, same jokes, right? So it's all about like where we're at. So that's the reason. And we all know that laughing's healing because it takes some energy for you to like kind of put that out there, and smiling, right? That takes energy too, but it's good energy. And so we want to do things that help us enjoy our life. Um, I know I feel like sometimes I sound like a broken record, but I wasn't always happy, and um, I kept trying to find things to make me happy and to have fun, and that didn't work. So I found it by doing the work, the stuff, the really hard stuff, the looking at ourselves and like understanding and learning about all this stuff. That journey is what got me to the point where now I can say I I know what I think is fun for me, and I know what I want in life, but I couldn't say that before. And so I know it's easy to say this on paper, like just do something fun or just figure out what you want in life. And you're like, no, it's not that easy. And I know that. So these are things that like we have to learn and we have to practice to like get there. But doing something fun is so important. Once you get past the spot of I don't deserve it, um, I'm too busy, these are the things I have to do, I'm obligated to this and that, instead of I am important and I need to do something for me. Not like in a selfish way, but like I'm sure your family, I'm sure that everybody would agree with you. Your friends, your family, they'd be like, yeah, you deserve that. We tend to be the hardest on ourselves and not doing something fun for ourselves. So you're the only one that can answer this question, what is fun for you? And often the answer is something that you enjoy doing when you were younger. So you have to think about like, well, what did I like to what's your earliest memory of something that you did that you enjoyed? And quickly we get out of those things. And I know I think right away, oh, I know what mine were. I'm like, yeah, I don't do that anymore. Right. And some things you may mature and change and, change your mind. Like, yeah, I colored some really cool, pictures. Well, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be an artist when I grow up. Right. But I enjoyed that at the time. So there could be something there that I could find enjoyment in doing something that's similar to that. Okay. Um, so often something from when we were younger, and then life starts happening, right? It starts happening really quick to us with obligations. You got to do good in school. You get busy even as a child with schedules or things you have to do at home. Like I said, we could talk about this for a long time. So just kind of thinking about that. What can I do that's fun? And getting active, we kind of talked about this earlier too. It doesn't mean you have to do hardcore exercise program. It needs to be whatever makes you happy. It's part of the happy, but it has to be enjoyable to you as well. But we get a little bit more into that another day on a different topic as well. But just moving, just know how important it is to move. So something that I recommend often to clients that I'm working with is, if nothing else, besides doing your deep breaths and maybe drinking your glass of water, when you wake up in the morning, first thing is just to literally just like reach for the sky. And you kind of feel silly, like if people are watching you, like I feel silly doing it in front of you, but it feels so good. And so you might do it like even in your bed before you even get out of bed. But I want you to stretch as far as you can to where it like almost feels like your arms are not starting to pop out, but like you feel a stretch, really good stretch. And then doing it down. And sometimes I'll call this in like the yoga world like a good morning. So if you've heard of that, but that's why they call it that. It's like you wake up and breathe in really deep and just do it. And it gets the oxygen to your head. You feel better, but it stretches you a little bit. That's movement. It's as simple as that. And we all have time for that because I can go tie my shoe. I might have to, I don't know what I'm doing up here, but I'm raising my hands and I want to feel better. So it could be as simple as that. And you can do that during the day too. It doesn't have to just be when you wake up. So just think about it that way and notice how different you feel if you're doing something like that. Asserting yourself. Again, this is one of these topics on here that wasn't like just like you're going to know the answer just like this. It's important to decide what we want in life, but it's not something we've ever been asked. I asked my mom, who's obviously older than me, recently, like, well, what do you want? I don't know. And I was like, that's the answer I used to have too. And so one of my goals is to like get the word out into the world. Like we all deserve to know what we want. Doesn't mean it's just going to magically happen. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but we deserve to look at what do I want? Who am I? What do I enjoy? What do I like? And a lot of that's been beat out of us, not literally, but just through life, like just through what we've experienced. So that's all that asserting yourself means, is like looking at what do I want? This is a big conversation. This is a really cool one for, I'm going to tell you about some of these books, but for the Discover Your Dharma. And all Dharma means is your life purpose. And all life purpose means is what do you want to do? And your soul's purpose. Just different ways of saying it. Okay. And it doesn't mean what is your job you're going to do? What is your employment? That has nothing, I mean, it does have something to do with your life, but that's not what we mean when we say find out what your soul's purpose is. It could be that you are someone that, wants to really like teach people, but not necessarily be a teacher. Share things, but not necessarily have a podcast or do something in that realm. You can do it, I'm going to say small for lack of a better word, but in your own bubble versus it's not something you have to do for the world. Okay. Doesn't mean small like it's not important and you're not important. It just means like it doesn't mean it has to be something really big and showy. But it's like understanding what you enjoy doing and what you do really well. And you all have something. You all have a superpower. And if I talk to you long enough, I'll figure out what it is. And that superpower is in there whether you're using it or not. And so this is about discovering that and finding that and using it for good and not for evil. And then expressing yourself. So this is good to do journaling. You don't have to share stuff with other people. Not everybody wants to talk to someone else. But I tell you what, if something is bothering you and we call it free journaling, where you just literally just start writing. And for some people, this is hard because like you want to have like, well, what is my assignment? And what is it? So if this works for you, just start writing about something that's bothering you. And you'd be surprised that by the time you're done writing about it, it's not necessarily that you've worked it out, because I don't even go back and necessarily read what I wrote down, but I feel a whole lot better after I do that. And so I think, again, it's a release, right? It's like a way of expressing yourself. So just know that you don't always have to necessarily go to the other person and express it if you don't want that confrontation, because we don't all express ourselves the same way, but we all have a way that we can. And then, of course, on here it says that you can talk to your doctor about getting a therapist or something like that. That was just a recommendation, and you guys all may have a good doctor and someone that may be able to recommend someone. I'll offer to help as well, but we'll talk about that at the end. And then ask for help. So don't be afraid to ask, help from spouse, family members. It's got to be someone that that you want to talk to about it, friends, neighbors. But just know that if your anxiety, which is part of stress, right? It's just a way of feeling stress, persists, that it's going to somehow affect your health. And so I'm here today in hopes that you learn something new and that you will have the same desire to want to love and take care of yourself by minimizing your stress in some form or fashion, knowing that you have the ability, the capacity to do something different about it. And I believe it's through knowledge. Knowledge is power. And so it gives you that power to do something different, whatever that means to you. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about some books that I recommend. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I brought some of them. I have a really big book collection, and um, the majority of them are on like recipes and different ways of eating and food and that type of thing. But these are the ones that go more into like the emotional stuff. So I don't know if I could tell you what my very favorite one is. I think I have like top three. Like if because I'm not a big book reader. Like I don't read quick. I just my friend here met me reading a book, so like like it took me 3 months to finish the book. But I love the idea of it, and I love learning from it. And so don't give up if you're not like a big book reader. But I would say Boundary Boss is amazing, and there's other boundary books, so it doesn't have to be this one. Highly recommend learning about Boundary Boss, but learning about boundaries because, again, this is something that we didn't necessarily learn growing up, or if we did, people would say you're mean or you're bossy. But it's really healthy to learn what boundaries are, what they look like, and how to hold those up. Another one that I really loved was Discovering Your Dharma, because it did talk about like finding who you are, what you like, and there's even a process that she goes through, like I think it's like a 21-day journey or whatever, where each day she takes you through the steps of figuring that out through a step-by-step process. Because I can't just say to you, well, what's your dharma? What's your soul's purpose? And you're like, oh, I don't know. That's the whole point. It took a whole book to like figure that out. But it was really good learning that one. This one's a little bit more business orientated, about get what you want. But again, it's like woman power, kind of gives us some information on what that can look like, and like how she was, poor and like learned some things and did something with it. So it's just kind of inspiring that way. Then I really love Joe Dispenza. I don't know if any of you have read any of his books, but you don't have to read a book. You can listen to all of it, like on YouTube or whatever. So if you're not a book reader, but just know that name, Joe Dispenza. He does a lot of not mind stuff. Well, it kind of is. I'm not going to do justice explaining it, but this one's called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, which sounds terrible because you're like, well, I'm great. Why would I want to break that habit? But it's the things that we stop ourselves, the habits that we have. And so he teaches you that in there. And then this is You Are the Placebo, which is just, he has multiple books. So this Emotional Grit's good. One of the coaching courses I took, this is one of the teachers. And so, but it was really good. Oh, my new favorite. My new favorite is The Untethered Soul. Again, I think it was recommended from one of my classes that I was taking, and at first I was kind of resistant, because I'm like, one more book, really? It's really good. It's really good. It's not a big read, a hard read, but it really teaches you how to look at what's happening, identify it, and release. Again, I don't know better words for it, so hopefully it's making sense when I say that, but kind of letting go of the emotion, I guess, with it. But again, I'm not explaining it very well, but it's a really good book. Oh, and this one's really fun. This one, my friend actually wrote it, and she used to live here. She doesn't live here anymore, so it's kind of like she's famous, but breaking free of your trauma cocoon. So she just shares her experience and stuff. Again, a very easy read as far as big print, not too many pages, but just insightful to like learn about what someone else did and the process. Anyways, so there's a few other books. They're pretty self-explanatory what they are, but you can learn a lot from reading stuff like this without necessarily having to go become a specialist, but you can still, enrich your life, enrich your family's life. But with that, I just have one more thing to offer you in a little bit of a different area, more in the nutrition area, if it's something you're interested in. My website is healthyselfwithfood.com, and it's on my website right now. I am offering detox protocols. So hopefully that makes sense what that is, but for removing sugar from your diet or removing fast food or junk food from your diet. It's really quick and easy. It's just a one-page thing, but if you go on there and put in your email address, you'll get the document emailed to you so that you have it. It just gives you the steps for doing something like that. So again, just if that's something that you're interested in. I also like to do a lot of stuff with sourdough. So I've got lots of resources on the website. And one of them that I also just developed is 8 reasons why real sourdough bread is better for your health. And it's just this kind of information bit by bit, because when I am working with clients, often there is the same information that people are interested in learning about, and it would be nice for them to be able to have somewhere to go for that. But that with coaching, it's just something where if you go to my website and you click on the coaching tab, it has a calendar and a way to schedule it.